I am not a big YouTube video blogger um, or even a little one. I sat here for like I think 40 minutes now, trying to figure out what I would say. And well, my first video was a year ago. I wanted to discuss like my journey. Wow. My journey being what it was. I spent the last year fighting for my family. So I didn't have the time or the patience or the mindset required to make any videos. I'm not a public type person. Um, in fact, you can say this video is in my closet. So my life is basically private, and to go public is really new to me. So yeah. So please don't mind that I'm not all that in a bag of chips. I'm not publicly open, I guess. I don't know. I was going to use this as a video log of my life and my time. We all have our designated situations. You know, not everybody's going through what I'm going through, and I'm not going through what they're going through. And I have my own interests. I have my own, desires, will, and style. And this is really my closet. It really is. It's just, it doesn't match, but it's all right. Um, I don't normally come on here to yik yak or whatever. I mainly like to read or listen to other people's stuff. Um, I know I'm not gonna be some big YouTube thinger or whatever. I don't care. Well, I do in as it's kind of fun, and I wouldn't mind. I don't know, maybe being recognized. I don't. I really, really don't know. I don't. I don't. I don't know. I'm just me. I was going to sit here and um, I was once a published writer. Figures, right? And well, let's just say some of my stuff is, my book is out there. It's just no one bought it, so it's alright. I really don't mind. That's just how the cookie crumbles, as they say. But anyway, I think I had some really good philosophy back in the day, and I'd really, really, really would like to get back into it. And since I suck at typing and spelling, when I was really young, I was better at it. I really was. But who knows what happened there. So, let's see, which one? Here's one. It's one of my favorites. It's actually it tells about journey in life. It's my description of a journey in life. So if you like it, comment. Um, Even if you don't like it, comment. Just let me know what was wrong with it, if there was anything. It's called The Sorrow of Tomorrow and the Pain of Today. Who's to know the way? Within me, I feel as if I have traveled a million miles. Within me, I have been driven into insanity. The instant I'd feel joy, I ran. Time tested and totally sure that the misery of tomorrow is never going to last, with all that has happened in the past. All I know is this is a building block to this pyramid I found, with steps going all around. Each step has a different color and shape, changing at every angle. While the feet that carry me seem strong, they stumble and fall, going back and forth through the maze of floors, liking some steps more than others. At times, I find myself resting on certain steps and going back down on others. I am almost afraid to take another step to the top of this pyramid I found, to be so lost and see so clear, the end being so near. I wonder, was I ever really here? At times, when I missed a step, I faltered, and falling a few steps down. Then I start back over again. I keep going just to see what is at the top of this pyramid I found, frightened at times by the size of it, wondering if I have the strength to make it to the top. At times, feeling like I should give up and just go back, shifting and curving with the worn stones, avoiding cracks I see and tripping on the ones I don't, feeling as if I have broken all my bones. But I keep going, aching more and more with every step, climbing so high and so close to the top, with only a few steps more to take. I still wonder if I will make it, but alas, I am tired and must rest. I will try again tomorrow to do my best to get to the top of this pyramid I found. The sorrow of tomorrow and the pain of today. Who's to know the way? Will I have the strength I had today? Will I fall again? Will I continue to the end? Will I fall back down to the ground again? Only when tomorrow comes will I know if I will finish this and make it to the top. For I hope I will, but am not sure if it will happen till tomorrow comes and I try again. Yeah, that was one of my poems, philosophical views, whatever anybody wants to call it. I don't care. It's something I wrote, but I was sitting here just thinking, with all that we go through, and to think when I was young, how things were so different then. I was sitting on the back of my mom's car and staring up at the sky. I watched it change from day to night, to feel a cool breeze while sitting on the grass, watching tadpoles in the fish tank turn into frogs. The cruel moments of nailing lizards to a tree stump or taking baths with snakes. I even slept with the family fish to keep them warm. I didn't say I was the smartest little girl. I was a tomboy and at times girly. I spent most of my time watching creatures I found around me. I would watch ants store food or rebuild their mound after a storm. I would sit on my dad's boat and imagine I was talking to God. I found him when I was a little girl and he changed my life. However, I spent a good portion of my time as a teen rebelling against everyone and at times against him. Not just because it was a stage of growing pains, but because I grew up in a foster care. I was all the more timid and shy. I was scared of everything, but too curious just to hide. I had to protect myself, especially when I was on the run. I had boyfriend after boyfriend taking me here and there. There was times I was sent back home to my parents and I ran away from them because I never wanted to live with them in the first place. I had lots of sex and tried several drugs. Fortunately, the only drugs I got hooked on was pot in the end. I tried cocaine, crack, acid, mushrooms, and for about 3 years of my teen life, I was heavy into inhaling butane lighter fluid. I was in and out of abusive relationships. One of the one of them having one night stands became a blessing. I was raped several times. One guy that raped me did it after having sex all night until I said I was tired. He didn't care and took more. When I was 18, I had a boyfriend who was taking care of me and my son. We were staying in an apartment until he lost his job. So we moved to a motel and what money we had and tried to figure out how we were going to survive. My boyfriend ended up meeting a couple who lived in the next room. A few days later, he just excitedly told me if I began stripping at the Cheetah, that we would get a discount on the motel room, plus daily cash to support us. Somehow they managed to talk me into doing it. It turned out to be easy money, seriously easy. I was the kind of girl who craved sexual attention but never liked following through. Plus, I love music and I love to dance. At times, the other girls were nasty towards me, but the majority of the time, we worked together to make our money. I went through a few relationships and several one night stands. I even fell in love, but at that time, it wasn't for me in that time of my life. I was too busy running away from my life and my past, while other times I was pitying myself and destroying myself by sleeping with guys I found attractive. When I met Mario, I was stripping in this nightclub called the Exotic Underground. I had just started my set when he walked into the room with a friend. To me, he looked handsome in his white shirt, surfer style shorts, and baseball cap. I stood up on stage waiting for him to turn around so I could look at his face, but he never did. So I got mad. As I went around to collect my tips, I walked up to him and asked him why he didn't watch me. He smiled and said he did. I said he had his back to me the whole time. So how could he watch me? Then his smile got bigger as he pointed to the mirror behind the bar facing the stage. I felt seriously embarrassed. So I stole his hat, then went to sit with one of my customers. As I walked away, he told his friend, "That bitch stole my hat." As I sat down, I realized he didn't try to take it back. After a few moments, I walked over to give him his hat back, and then I asked for his name and number. Turned out he was from the Coast Guard station a few miles away. Mario was his name. He and his friend left the club soon after. When I got off work, I went to the BYOB club, which is a bring your own bottle, called Hammer Time, and got wasted. About a week later, I decided to give him a call. When I called, they had said he was not available, so I left a message for him to call me back. He didn't call, so I called again. Then he answered the phone. He sounded so excited to hear from me, telling me he didn't think I would call him. We talked for, I think, a few hours. I even started flirting with him on the phone. Before we hung up, I asked him if I could see him after work. He said okay. I spent my day buying birthday cakes and presents for my son for his first birthday. One cake was for him to do with as he wanted, while the other was for everyone else to eat. I came back and set up a small party for my son, my mother, and my baby sisters and brother, who were 1, 3, and 4 at the time, were at the party. My youngest sister Amanda and my son took the first cake and fed it to me by handfuls. Trying to shove cake and hand into my mouth, my son covered his face with the cake, and so did my sister. My other sister Shanae and my brother Stephen joined in eating and playing in the cake. While my mother cleaned up the birthday mess, I got ready to go work at the nightclub. Mario showed up not long after I started work. He stayed with me till I got off work. We spent my shift talking in between my sets. I even asked him to be my guy. He said yes. I told him I felt like the happiest girl in the world, so I wanted to do cartwheels. And trust me, if we hadn't been at work, I would have. After work, he met me outside at my car. Fortunately, I knew a lot of things about Mario. The girls I worked with decided they wanted to hassle me about leaving with him. After I semi-satisfied them that I knew him, he and I drove to a spot I went to before to show him the view. We had sat in my mom's car talking, and I told him all my theories and even told him my fantasies of mermaids in the city of Atlantis. Now, look, you may not believe in the city of Atlantis, you may not even believe in mermaids, but hey, I was young and naive. Well, I'm still naive at times, but I was still young. And he thought I was kooky, but he still liked me. And while we were there, a cop decided to pull up and check up on us. You see, I didn't have a driver's license and never got the car registered, and the tag that was on it belonged to another vehicle. So I had to think fast on what to say to the cop. I honestly forget what I told the cop, but whatever I said, I impressed Mario with him. A few hours later, we slept together in my mom's car. When the sun came up, I took him to my parents' house where I was staying and told him to wait down the street while I got my mom's car back to her, that I would come and find him to bring him over. I went home, dropped off the car, went to my mom, and told her about the night. Everything. I mean, practically detail. This poor guy, he's like a few blocks away wondering when I'm coming back, if I'm coming back, probably. And I'm sitting there telling my mother all about this. So then I went to find Mario. While I was walking with him back to my house, I told my mom everything we did the night before, and he looked scared. I was bad. I introduced him to my mother and my son, then my sisters and brother. At first, he didn't seem comfortable with being there, and I can't really say I blame him. Then he and I laid on the couch to watch TV and fell asleep. When we woke up, Mario told me and my mom about some experiences he had while working for the Coast Guard and some techniques he was taught when on board a ship when he needs to defend himself. As he spoke, I noticed his excitement and love for his job. We went out a few more times to the movies and out to late night dinners, even some private moments in motels. So one night while I was working, he told me not to fall in love with him because of him being in the Coast Guard. He had to go where they sent him, which to me was the worst thing to say to me. He didn't know about my past. He didn't know that when I was 15, I was with a 28-year-old man who told me every chance he got how he loved me, but wasn't in love with me. Because I was too young, that even when I wanted to have sex, it was a bad idea and a sin. Yet when he wanted sex, it was perfectly fine. He even had the nerve to treat me as if I was a wife without the wifely title or a say in what goes on. I cooked and cleaned and did his laundry. I even took out the trash. I was his maid, used now and then for sex. I thought when I met Anthony, his name, I thought he was sexy and sweet and was seriously overwhelmed that a older man was interested in me. I was with him almost 2 years, the longest relationship in my life besides my marriage. During that time, I started cheating on him with other older men, a guy named Buddy and a guy named Jeff. When I found out I was pregnant, Anthony wanted to get married. He said he wanted to do the right thing and marry me, though he still wasn't in love with me. Long story short, Anthony became violent towards me while I was pregnant with my son because I said he was bringing me down. One time he tried to strangle me, another time he had open handed slapped the crap out of me and told me I couldn't leave till he felt like letting me go. When I was able to leave, I ran. But that is a story that will remain unfinished. Back to Mario. So here was the man I had already fallen for who didn't want to fall for me. I felt sad and hurt. So when Mario wasn't able to see me, I started seeing someone else. His name was Pete. In many ways, Pete looked like Mario. So when I wasn't with Mario, I was with his lookalike. Then one night, Mario came into the nightclub and told me he was being sent to Miami for a few months, and that to be fair to me, he was breaking up with me. After he left, I was shocked, but what could I do? Pete and I stopped seeing each other soon after Mario and I broke up. Then I met Richard soon after Mario left for Miami. Richard seemed like a good guy, and we started dating. Then soon afterwards we moved in together. So one night I was working, one of the girls I worked with got into a fight with me. We yelled so much and so loud, the whole bar heard us. Shortly after our argument, the girl left and went home. Not long after she left, two guys came into the club and told me the girl was in an accident a few blocks away. That it didn't look good. I would say it didn't. I went to my boss and told her that what happened, and she let me leave so I could go help the girl. The two guys gave me a ride to the accident. The car was totaled. It was wrapped around the telephone pole. When I saw her, she had bitten her tongue off, almost in half. Her head had a dent where it hit the steering wheel. Her chest was seriously bruised. When she saw me, she started crying and telling me she was sorry for our fight and what she had said to me. I told her, don't worry about it. It took me about an hour to talk to her and get her out of the car and go into the hospital. She refused to go with me. I asked the guys to take me to the hospital, or go without me, I'm sorry. I asked the guys to take me to the hospital while I was sitting in the waiting room with the two guys to find out how she was doing. I called Richard to let him know what's happening. He cussed me out and told me to never embarrass him again, that when he comes to pick me up for work, I had better be there. I told him I was sorry and asked if he would pick me up from the hospital. He said, hell no, and told me either walk or take a cab. I got pissed. So I asked those same two guys who had been more than kind to give me a ride home. They said they would. While on the way to my house, they fired up a joint and we smoked all the way to my house. When we arrived at my house, the guy said, maybe we should drop you off a little ways down so your guy doesn't get upset. I said, nope. I hope he sees me get out of your truck. Serves him right. Turned out Richard was asleep. So I spent a few days planning to leave him. One night while I was having sex with Richard, oh man, this was horrible. And I don't know, I thought about Mario and pictured him making love to me instead of Richard, and had experienced my first orgasm. I was 19 years old and had been having sex since I was 11 years old, willingly. Yet this was my first orgasm with another person. It embarrassed me. I even felt excited and then totally disappointed. What does it matter? It was probably a fluke. But why would I ever think about Mario, especially during a moment like that with another man? Well, later I started putting away money to get a place to cover myself. I told Richard it was going to be a place for both of us and my son. When I finally had the money to move into an efficiency, I went and paid for it a few weeks up front. I called Richard and told him I had already gotten the place and had moved my stuff in. That when he got off work, he could get his stuff and move into. Well, while he was working, I went and called an old flame and invited him over. I was a bad girl. While I waited for Mike and his friend Craig to come, I went and rented a jet ski for 35 bucks an hour. That was so fun. And played the internet for a while. Man, it was awesome. I love doing like donuts and stuff. When Mike and Craig showed up, Mike asked if I had a beer. I said no. So he asked Craig to go get some and asked if I wanted any. So I said sure. While Craig was out buying the beer, Mike and I, well, it started out that, you know, he wanted a massage. So I gave him one, and one thing led to another. And we had sex. And by the time Craig came back, we had finished and were hanging out. About an hour or so later, Mike and Craig went home. Not too long after that, Richard showed up. He had some of his stuff in his hands. I told him sit down. I needed to talk to him. Then I told him about what I had done. He said he could forgive me, but why did I cheat? I never answered. We spent about an hour arguing about it till I told him to get out. Then, about a day or so later, I had to work a double shift for 2 days. And up until this moment, I never worked a double during ever, ever. And during my day shift, Mario walked in. I melted, then felt hot, and then I felt like my stomach was going to twist out of control. I felt confused. I practically ran up to him. He was surprised to see me. He knew I usually worked nights. He didn't expect to see me there. We spent the rest of the evening talking together. He told me he was being sent to Alaska and was only in town long enough to grab the rest of his things before he was to head up north. I asked him to my place after work. We made love the rest of the night. While he was making love to me, he whispered in my ear, "Will you marry me?" My heart dropped to my feet. I thought, did I hear him right? So I asked him to repeat what he said. Then he said, "Never mind." I was crushed. After he left, I cried and cried and screamed and cried. A few weeks later, he called me at work, screaming at me. He called me horrible names and said horrible things to me. He told me he didn't want to see me again. I was devastated. He told me I had given him gonorrhea and chlamydia. When I got off the phone, a girl I had trained and had been hanging with and had asked me what was wrong. And so I told her. The next thing I knew, my boss came to talk to me about the STDs and told me I was not allowed to return to work till I was treated. I went to the clinic and found out I had only gonorrhea, no chlamydia. I got my shot and my meds and a note from my boss. Then I went home. I called Mario to talk to him and told him I didn't have chlamydia. There was no way I gave it to him. He told me he didn't sleep with anyone other than me. I said, "How is it you have both and I only have one?" He said he didn't know that he needed a copy of my treatment papers. I told him I would send it. I spent the last 13 years of my life wishing I had. Several years ago, I finally sent the paper, but to this day, I haven't ever seen Mario again. We parted ways 6 months after that, with the words of he wished to spend his last days at the station without hearing from me. I spent the last 8 years married to a man I love, but could not bring myself to let go of Mario. The hope of him showing up in my life and willing the fates to have him cross my path. to close that chapter. Um, at the time, I I hadn't let go. After him, I went on a sex spree. I ruined relationships I had so I wouldn't fall in love. When I felt I was getting close, I made sure I screwed it up. Even to this day, no one will ever be as close to my heart as Mario was. I promised to my last breath, no one ever will. There are times I find myself making love to my husband and picturing Mario there, always feeling ashamed afterwards. Ashamed because I was being unfaithful to my husband in my heart, and ashamed because he knew how I felt for Mario. I even shoved it in his face that I had a choice over him. If I had a choice over him and Mario, he would lose. The violence in my marriage escalated. My husband tried to kill me by twisting my head so far around I could look down at my butt. He tried strangling me to death and bashed my head against the concrete in the cars, even our slate pool table. He even beat me so bad I had bruises up and down my face and body. But every time I stayed, I even had him arrested a few times each time I got back with him. The third time he was arrested was for violating probation, but not appearing for AA meetings. At this time, I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, and the motel we were living in was also where my husband worked. By working there, we lived rent free and was paid to keep the grounds clean. So when he went to jail, I couldn't take over his duties because the owner didn't want a pregnant woman doing that kind of work. So I was evicted. I had no money and no way of getting a job, being 5 months pregnant. I spent weeks trying to find a shelter that would take me and my unborn daughter and my other daughter. I ended up with a bleeding ulcer and acid reflux, not to mention nightly visits to the toilet because of indigestion and vomiting, which lasted the rest of my pregnancy. I finally found a shelter that gave me a home with Title IV funding that paid 90% of the rent while I paid 10. I found out the hard way I was never going to meet another man because I had HIV and no one wants a girl who can kill him. So when my husband got out of jail, I went back to him. He's been sober now for going on 4 years. By the way, this is from my book, but I'm filling you in on me. Since he quit drinking, he has been taking care of me and being a good husband and father, though I think because of what happened during the first few years of my marriage, I may not be able to love him as I did when I met him. I know I have lots more to tell, but not enough time at this moment to tell it. Those of you who read this understand that I am sharing my life and hope you can appreciate the struggles I have endured, while all the while using the exposure to heal and voice out to the world how I suffered, and hoping it will one day give me peace of mind to have it off my chest. The rest of you, what you read is from this page on is journal entries. These, like I said, are from my book. Um, the Gabby Show, a lady who does YouTube videos and is obviously very popular. She gave me the idea to do video logs and video journal, and this is my second one. A year ago, I did another one to start this, but I didn't really like plan it like this. I didn't really like know if I was gonna do it like this or how. And well, while other people do short videos, obviously mine are long. Um, I don't know how long the videos can be on YouTube, so I'm going to go for now and see if I can upload it. And if I can, you'll see it. And I hope to do more and give more from my book. I may do more tonight because it's a long book and there's a lot in it. But I'm 42 years old. I've been in HIV pause since October 29th of 1996. And as you can see, I'm not dead. And as you can see, it hasn't like completely destroyed me. It's done its number over the years. It's the medication actually has been worse than the virus itself. I I can only say by the grace of God, I am able to be here, to say anything, to do anything, to live. I probably one of the most damaged people on the internet. Only I'm willing to admit it. I ain't, like a somber person. I'm not really all that together. I mean, in the future, you will probably see that. And being in the closet, because, people like me, we can't be open. We, uh, we're shunned. I don't understand why. I didn't create the virus, neither did the people that have it. But we do have to live with it. It's not like we have a choice. And until they find a cure, what else am I gonna do? Thank you.